The Equalizer, directed by Antoine Fuqua, starring Denzel Washington. And when they worked together before, of course, Denzel managed to get himself an Oscar for Training Day. Ain't going to be no awards coming this way. So The Equalizer, did you ever watch the Edward Woodward TV show?
What certificate was it?
Well, it was a television programme, so it didn't have a certificate.
What time is it on?
9, I think. Did you remember The Wolf of Wall Street recently?
I do.
It's the thing that
we discussed it quite a lot, and Leonardo DiCaprio was on the show, and I think I interviewed him.
It's the thing that Rob Reiner is watching when the phone rings and it disturbs him. You remember it's that? So, this is nominally an adaptation of the TV series, which for a while was going to be done by Russell Crowe. Anyway, so the story is Denzel Washington is this very ordinary guy. It's an ordinary schmo called Robert McCall, and he works in a home supplies depot.
I can't imagine that, really.
No, I know, exactly. He's terribly ordinary. We're shown very early on that he's kind of ordinary, but something special, which is that he clock watches all the time. We see him, he wakes up before the alarm goes off. He stop watches his, walk to work or his walk to whatever, he reads for a certain amount of time. So he's obviously sort of, slightly OCD, and he works in the home, and he's very jolly good to everybody. There's some guy who wants to be a security guard, so he's quiet, and at night times he goes out to the local diner and he reads classic literature. So he's working on something. There's obviously a man of depth, but he's quiet. He keeps himself to himself. But he's Denzel Washington. It's The Equalizer. And then Chloe Grace Moretz, who plays this sort of very vulnerable streetwalker, walks into his diner with bruises on her face, and suddenly he decides that it's time to go kill a whole bunch of people. Next thing you know, he's up to his neck in Russian gangsters, one of whom turns up at his apartment pretending to be a policeman.
Mr. McCall.
Yeah.
Sorry to bother you. We're looking into a homicide that occurred 2 weeks ago. 5 dead. Russian restaurant.
Oh, yeah, I heard about it on TV. I happened to be there that night.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. You wouldn't be here if I wasn't.
That's right. We're just checking to see if any of the patrons remembered anything suspicious that night.
Not that I recall.
May I ask why you dined at that particular restaurant?
Like Borowski.
You didn't stay long.
I didn't check my watch.
I see. Wow. Thanks for your cooperation.
Very welcome.
I'll be in touch.
Don't you want to leave me your card, officer? In case I remember anything? That's what you policemen usually do, right?
Must have given them all out.
How'd you find me? I paid cash. We didn't have a reservation. How'd you find me?
Well, that's what we do, Mr. McCall.
We who?
Find people we need to find.
We who?
I was waiting for him to say, "Didn't you fly that plane upside down?" You were really good in that.
So, newly sort of unleashed from his quiet lifestyle, in which he's a little bit OCD and he stopped watching everything, he goes to war basically with the Russian gangsters and the corrupt cops. And the gag, as you all know from the trailer, the gag is that he does he's got a sort of low heartbeat, so he's obviously got a kind of special ops past. He's somebody who's very much like Liam Neeson. I have a special set of skills which makes me very terrible for people like you. And then the rest of the movie plays out over its 132 minutes, of which I have to say it could lose at least 30, because it's a 95-minute movie at very, very best. He just goes from one act of very highly choreographed and orchestrated violence to the next. And it is utter balderdash. It wants to have sort of some sense of a conflicted character, but it's really not interested in that at all. There's a whole thing, he's widowed and he's reading the books and stuff's going on, and he believes in, equal. And the whole thing is sort of set up for the Equalizer, because it's the Equalizer's thing is, if you're in need and you need something, but if the odds are all against you, call the A team, or in this case, call the Equalizer. But actually, what the movie is really doing is going from one set piece to another, in which Denzel Washington walks into a room with like 90 guys with tattoos and massive heads, and then he'll stand there and he'll sort of size them all up.
Does he make us all more equal at the end of it?
Oh, well, yes, most people by the end of it are equally dead. And he sort of, he figures it all out, and then they all rush at him with machine guns and bazookas, and then he, at the end of it, says something like 23 seconds. And then he walks out. And that's pretty much it.
I saw that on the trail, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. So it is rubbish, but it's an interesting rubbish in comparison with Walk Among the Tombstones. Walk Among the Tombstones I just thought was really plodding and self-important, and wanted to mean more than it did with the kind of doom-laden thing. But in fact, it was just a trashy exploitation movie. This is just a trashy exploitation movie with an A-list star that kind of knows what it is. It's got a very old school retro Death Wish style vigilantism. The fact that he works in a home supplies depot means you know that we're going to end up with video nasty type power tools sorting everything. It's a whole kind of straw dogs. You know, he doesn't use conventional weaponry. He uses the stuff that you'd build shelves with. And so the movie just takes an awful lot of pleasure in doing that. Look, we're in a hardware store, bunch of Russian gangsters, and one man with a power drill. And then it does
it's a power drill, not sort of glue and screws.
Oh no,
everything.
Yeah, nail guns and sticky back plastic and there's a bit when he goes to a dock and you think, oh, they're going to do a dockyard showdown. That's really boring. And then he just blows the dock up and goes back to the hardware store. So it's tosh.
What's happened to Chloe Grace Moretz, by the way? When you said she's a streetwalker, is that the same as a lady of the night, or is that just someone who's lost?
She's a lady of the night who's working for the Russian gangsters and has have a horrible life and is being...
Is a streetwalker a term? Is that a thing?
I don't know. I didn't
you just make that up?
No, I didn't make it up. I'm sure it's a term.
Okay, it's a term.
She's a lady of the night.
Right.
Yes, but, the point is that she's a young girl who's being hideously abused by these really evil gangsters who deserve everything
that's more descriptive.
That Denzel is going to be dishing out. Okay, and dish it out.
They deserve to be equalled.
Yes, so they are all equal, and it is rubbish. I mean, it is absolutely meat-headed rubbish. But I'd be lying if I didn't pretend that if I pretended that the old school video nasty style DIY dispensing of the baddies, all of whom are drawn with the most caricatured strokes possible, didn't strike a baser nerve.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, but it's way too long, and it's way lacking in ambiguity, dude.
But everyone who deserved to be equalled got equalled,
And
then a few more.
And yes.